So Colin Kaepernick responds back to Mike Vick indirectly with something I've been saying for about a year, that black people, all black people, suffer from some type of mental disorder / illness. I've been saying that for a year. The common factors are epigenetics, your surroundings, how you grew up, right? Systemic issues that causes dramatic changes in your environment, your environmental factors, all contribute to a mental health concern. Mental health is a huge problem in the quote unquote black community. It's a huge problem, right? And so Colin Kaepernick, like I said, responds back to the comment from Mike Vick when Mike Vick was on the show. If you haven't watched my other video where I talked about Mike Vick, and I played the clip of Mike Vick talking about why Colin Kaepernick does not have an NFL job right now, because Mike Vick thinks Colin Kaepernick needs to cut his hair, when we know it's not an image problem. I saw the clip of Shannon Sharp just going at Mike Vick, talking about, you know, he's perpetuating a stereotype of black people, you know, looking a certain way, the emasculation of black people. They have to conform to the status quo of white supremacy and that kind of thing, which I completely agree. But at the end of the day, systemically, collectively as a group, we have a identity crisis. We don't know who we are. We think we're Christians. We think we're Muslims. We think we're Moors, 5%ers, NOI. We don't know who we are. You know, we think we're Hebrew Israelites. We all over the place. We have an identity issue. And this contributes, once again, to mental health issues in the black community. And so what Colin Kaepernick posted about Stockholm Syndrome, and I always talked about Stockholm Syndrome being one of the primary factors of why black people suffer from a mental health issue such as Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, he hit it right on the head, just like I've been saying for about a year. You know, I've said Stockholm Syndrome is a huge issue in the black community. Post-traumatic slave syndrome and cognitive dissonance. All of these issues contribute to epigenetics of how your surroundings, how your environmental factors from systemic issues plaguing in certain areas, whether you live in a low income area or even an affluent area, you are still influenced by your environment and how it changes your thought process, your mental health. It all plays a role. You know, drugs, homelessness, crime, all plays a role in mental health. And so this is what he posted about Stockholm Syndrome. I've talked about this before in other videos, but this is what he posted with the definition. The Stockholm Syndrome appears when an ambushed victim develops a kind of respect and empathy towards their abuser. It was named after a bank robbery in Stockholm when a group of bank employees were held hostage and developed a strong sense of empathy towards their captors. Who was the captors that have been doing this for over 500 years, since 1505, the inception of the transatlantic slave trade? People classified as white, the dominant white society. Let me continue. When this traumatic event was over, they even defended their captors by not wanting to say anything that might endanger their captors' freedom. This usually happens because the victim sees the smallest act of decent behavior as an extracted event, which makes them see their captors as essentially good. They leave aside all the negative behavior distinctions of their captors and focus on the positive ones. This syndrome is also called traumatic bonding or victim brainwashing, right? So, like I said, that's what I've been talking about for about a year on my channel. I have older videos expressing that. Y'all can check it out. I'll have it up I'll have it up on the screen and also in the description. This is one of the videos right here. Why all black people suffer from a mental disorder. I posted this September of last year. I'm going to play a clip of the video. This is coming from a neuropsychologist. His name is Dr. Vick. He's going to explain to you. And this is recorded by me, okay? This was a lecture that I did back in 2014, or I actually ran in 2014. I got the venue. I brought down several speakers to talk about issues plaguing the black community. And I brought down a lot of these people from many different resources, like Dr. Vick, who is a neuropsychologist out of South Florida, and many other great speakers and educators in the school system to speak about issues plaguing the black community. So I did this back in 2014. All right, this is when I was still, trying to get involved with the so-called black conscious community. And I was bringing out all these people and doing these things. But let me play this clip, guys. All right, and then I encourage you guys to watch this whole video where I break down and connect the dots of black people suffering from mental disorders and having a mental health issue in the black community. All right, so let me play this clip and I'll come back with my commentary.
One of the primary features of a traumatic brain injury, is memory loss. Memory loss. So patients, and one of the most interesting cases I had was a child who was in a coma like 6 months. So what happens when a child recovers from a coma? The first thing the child does is that he does not recognize his parents. He doesn't recognize himself. He has lost the ability, so he's lost his ability to comb his hair or to brush his teeth. And you really won't understand the nature of brain injury or appreciate brain injury until you see patients in this particular state. Most of the patients I evaluated were basically, dead on arrival, if you will, but with good medical technology, we're able to resuscitate these patients and able to recover to a certain degree, not in every case, but that's another discussion. I may have to come back to that one. That's a whole nother situation. So let's deal with why would people hide information? Well, the answer to that, physiologically speaking, is to erase memory. Basically. So if I want to control you, I'll just erase your memory, not in your mind. You see? Now, memory is a very, very important neurological phenomenon, because without it, you would lose your mind. So that what happens to patients when they come to the hospital, we have to evaluate patients based upon their mental status. Now, their mental status, basically, one of the components, again, I have to come back for some of these things because these are not easy. I have so much to say, but very little time to say it. One of the things that we'll do in hospitals when patients come in for psychiatric evaluation is one of the components of mental status is memory. And so I ask you a question, what's your name? Where do you live? What's your mother's name? What's your social security number? Blah, blah, blah. Now one of the hallmark features, you have to understand though, but one of the hallmark features of mental illness is the inability to know who you are. Somebody got that right. One of the components of mental illness is not knowing who you are.
All right, see? I told y'all. I've been saying that since last year, and that completely confirms why so many black people suffer from a mental health issue. Because we don't know who we are. Like I said, we have an identity crisis. We're all over the place. We can't agree on one thing. Christians, Muslims, 5%ers, independent Moors, melanin, whatever. I mean, we're calling ourselves all kinds of things. The dominant white society, they know who they are. Oh, I'm white. That's it. I'm white. Now you can say, there's some people that can say, well, it's not white, it's the Jews. The Jews are classified as white people. Okay? On their driver's license, they're classified as white. Jew is not a race. All right? So the dominant white society know who they are. Black people, we don't know who we are. Even the ones that claim they do, they don't really know their true history and their ancestry when it comes to Africa. They don't know their lineage. They don't know and understand that. And so, you know, the old saying goes, right, where the first step to recovery, right, is admitting that you have a problem. So because of black people suffering from so much mental health issues in our community, we don't know we have a problem. So we can't admit anything that we don't. We think everything is fine. You know, we think everything is fine. And so from a athlete perspective, like the NFL, all of these athletes out here, NBA and all that stuff, they think everything is fine. Everything is just whoop-de-doo. I'm getting money. I'm getting paychecks from my owners. My owner. I mean, in this day and age, you're referring to your boss as an owner. They own your ass literally and figuratively. They own everything about your life. You depend on them. You're dependent on them giving you a paycheck. That's a mental disorder. That is what Colin Kaepernick is talking about. Stockholm syndrome. They're abusing you. They've been doing it for over 500 years, since the inception of the transatlantic slave trade since 1505. They've been whipping your ass for that long and you don't even care. You think everything is normal. Beating your ass, taking money, you know, police shootings or suspected race soldier shootings, etc., etc. And they've been doing this for centuries. The law enforcement department, since they've been incepted, since the Judiciary Act of 1789, that's all they've been doing is rape and pillaging people of color. Shooting unarmed black men, women, and children. Doesn't matter what age you are. And we still have a love for the dominant white society because we depend on them so much. Right now, I'm still dependent on them right now. I'm using Google to get this message out. I'm using their infrastructure to get this message out. I'm still paying taxes. Everybody is. I'm still relying on their technology that they own, their infrastructure that they own for my everyday life, like email and stuff like that. I'm still dependent on the dominant white society's resources. But I know that is a problem. I know that is a mental health issue, and I know that needs to be resolved and eradicated by completely separating from that group of people, completely separating from the group of people who mistreat us, abuse us, subjugate us, execute us, which is why I call myself the Black Separatist. We need to own and control all 9 areas of activity. That's economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. We need our own infrastructure. And we need to separate from our own people who make us look bad. The coons, the Sambos, the sellouts, the people who have these mental health issues that don't want any help, that think everything is fine. We need to completely separate from those people as well. All right. But like I said, Colin Kaepernick hit it right on the head. And I've been saying this for about a year. And I just played the clip with Dr. Vuai, and I encourage you guys to watch a whole video where I break down why black people suffer from mental disorders or mental health issues in our community and what we need to do to resolve it. Because if we don't know who we are, that's the first battle we got to win. We have to identify who we are as people. Once we identify who we are, everything else will make sense. Colin Kaepernick knows who he is. Mike Vick doesn't. He's a lost Negro. He's a zombie. We got millions of zombies who are black walking around not knowing who they are. And that's the problem. We got the Walking Dead right now walking around here. Unconscious. Mentally dead. Once you get awakened, once you get so-called conscious, and you connect the dots about your history, then everything will start to make sense for you. And you hit the ground running like Colin Kaepernick does. All right. Now, one more thing I want to talk about is you know, people are talking about boycotting the NFL. This comes around this topic comes around every year. Something happens, and I've also heard conversations about NFL players, you know, they're jealous of NBA players because of the salaries and all that stuff. Listen, man, this is a system. This is a systemic issue. This is a systematic issue that's happening because the dominant white society owns the resources. So when you want to boycott something, you better do all or nothing, right? So if you want to boycott the NFL, boycott the NBA, boycott boxing, boycott anything regarding entertainment, because we don't own or control none of these things, right? In order for you to boycott something, you need to have something to replace it with. We don't have nothing to replace any of these things that we want to boycott with, okay? So it's all or nothing. Either you're going to boycott everything that's owned and controlled by the dominant white society, or you're not, right? We don't have the resources. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have anything in place to replace what's owned by them. We don't. So the boycotting thing does not make sense, right? We need to build a parallel economy. We need to start building that up right now. A parallel economy basically means we own and control our own infrastructure that is up to par or better than what the dominant white society owns and controls. That's a parallel economy. That's what we had during the era of Jim Crow. Black Wall Street, right? Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we had our own black-owned businesses. We were booming. Our dollars circulated around our own community, right? That's what I'm talking about. Until we get to that point, there's no outcome of boycotting the NFL, the NBA, YouTube, anything that's owned and controlled by the dominant white society. You're not going to get an outcome out of it because they're going to continue to make money and continue to make business, right? We don't need symbolic victories, right? We don't need one, right? We need to completely separate from what they own and control. That is a permanent solution. We don't need a symbolic victory. We need a permanent solution. All right. So anyway, family, those are my thoughts on that. Leave your comments down below about the post from Colin Kaepernick and Stockholm Syndrome. Like I said, I encourage you guys to watch my video about why black people suffer from mental disorders. I'll have the link in the description, so please check that out. All right. Until next time, family, make sure you follow me on social media at The Black Separatist on Instagram and Twitter. My email address is GMOGmedia@gmail.com. I know I have a couple of people asking me about that. My email address is down below in the description. Check it out. All right. GMOGmedia@gmail.com. If you have any questions or you have any topics you want me to talk about, send me an email and I'll definitely check it out. All right, family. Until next time, Chauncey, a.k.a. The Black Separatist, signing out. Peace.